Discipline kids strictly or spoil them. Have kids who never listen or have kids who never stop talking. Deal with picky eaters or deal with messy eaters. Raise a teenager with attitude or raise a toddler with tantrums. Deal with a clingy child or deal with an overly independent child. Have a child who hates school or have a child who hates sports. Be a strict parent but respected or be a lenient parent but loved. Have a child who always lies or have a child who always argues. Have a child who never sleeps or have a child who never eats. Be a parent to a rebellious teenager or be a parent to a stubborn toddler. Have a child who is always sick or have a child who is always hyperactive. Deal with a crying baby or deal with a whining toddler. Have a child who is always bored or have a child who is always hyperfocused. Be a parent to a child with no friends or be a parent to a child with too many friends. Have a child who is always grumpy or have a child who is always overly cheerful. Be a parent to a child who never listens or be a parent to a child who always talks back. Deal with a spoiled child or deal with a neglected child. Raise a child who always breaks rules or raise a child who always follows rules. Have a child who is always late or have a child who is always early. Be a parent to a child with no manners or be a parent to a child with too many manners. Have a child who is always shy or have a child who is always overly confident. Deal with a child who is always scared or deal with a child who is always reckless. Be a parent to a child who is always disobedient or be a parent to a child who is always obedient. Have a child who is always messy or have a child who is always overly tidy. Raise a child who always breaks things or raise a child who never shares. Deal with a child who always throws tantrums or deal with a child who always sulks. Be a parent to a child who never apologizes or be a parent to a child who never forgives. Have a child who is always too loud or have a child who is always too quiet. Raise a child who is always rebellious or raise a child who is always conforming. Deal with a child who always breaks promises or deal with a child who always breaks toys.